Hey Houdini owners, Dave Brennan with American Pinball Tech Tips. Today I'm going over troubleshooting for your P-Rock board in regards to USB connection and power going to that board. If you've ever turned on the game and you had a situation where it displays check that connection, essentially that's saying it can't find the USB connection going from the computer to the P-Rock board to communicate. The other thing that it could be is the P-Rock board is not getting power from the power supply. So let me slide the playfield glass off, lift the playfield up fully vertical, and let's take a closer look. Now that your playfield is lifted fully vertical and resting on the back box, you can see the P-Rock board on the left-hand side wall of the cabinet. You may need to remove some protective paper in order to take a closer look, but what you're looking for is the largest board on the side wall of the cabinet in the center, and what you're looking for is the USB connection. This is the connection at the side of the board that goes up to the computer, and then the power connection. This is the 5 volts coming from the power supply that's powering this board. If you don't have a connection with USB or with power, you won't see the blue lights dancing around, in which case we need to take a closer look at the power supply. If you look in the back bottom of the cabinet, you'll see a power supply that's made by Antek, and it looks like this. On the left hand side, you have the 5 and 12 volt rectifier section. What can happen on these is the capacitors for C1 and C2 can fail. And so you can do one of two things. You can either replace the entire rectifier section, which I will post the link to that in the video description, or you can replace these capacitors on your own if you are familiar with circuit board repair. Either way, you need to get this section out of there. So the entire power supply is held on with some screws. There's 4 screws on the base, and you can get that out. And then once you have the base detached, there are 4 screws holding the rectifier section to the base, and then the whole thing can come out. So from here, I'm going to go to my soldering bench. I'm going to show you how I replace these capacitors if you want to fix it on your own. Alright, here on the soldering desk I have the rectifier section of the Antek power supply pulled out, and the capacitors that we're talking about are C1 and C2, which are 2200 UF 16 volt capacitors. And if you look closely at the capacitor, you can see that the right one, C1, is bulged up, and you can have this tester here where we can look at the capacitance of this. It's saying about 9700 UF with 0 resistance, and here I have a new 2200 capacitor sitting right about 2000 UF, 0 resistance. Now I'll do the other side, which isn't bulged up, but you can already see that it'll probably be failing at some point, or is about to, because the capacitance rating on it is at 4600 or almost 4700. So if you're going to replace it, you might as well replace both of them. Here I have another rectifier section that was returned from a customer that has bulged or the tops of it has bulged on both sides, and so if you're going to replace one, you might as well replace them both. So the original rating was a 16 volt 2200 UF, microfarad, and so I'm actually going to replace it with a 2225 volt. So this is the largest case size that I could find that will still fit in this place. So I'm going to do that just to give it a little bit longer life for the long term. To take out this capacitor, you can take the screws out from the middle here and take this whole section off, but I think, oh, and then there's screws for the heat sinks on both sides here that need to come out, and then this whole circuit board section can come out. Rather than doing that, I'm going to do a method to just take it out from where it sits. So I'm just going to heat up one of the legs and bend it towards one side, and then do that for the other side. Just kind of pull it out like that. And then the negative is going to the left, positive to the right. So make sure that you're putting it back in the same orientation. So your positive lead is always longer. So you just can heat up that through hole, get the positive started, and then you do the same thing for the negative. So once the legs come out, you'll have to give them a little bit more space to move. So you can push it down. There we go. So now I'm just gonna add a little bit of solder to the ends here on the solder pads. And then I snip off the leads. And that side is done. You can see that the case size is a little bit big for the this rectifier section, but the 25 volt should last longer than the 16 did. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. Then again, same thing. I'll add a little solder to the solder pad underneath to make sure that's good and connected. And then snip the leads off. There we go. And it's ready to install in the game.